Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast. I'm coming live from Newmarket as we build up to a very big weekend of racing this weekend. We're going to be taking you through the Dewhurst Stakes, the Group 1 and the Cesarewitch, as well as other weekend betting selections. We've got the return of some pretty exciting jump racing. We've got a look at that. We can have a look at Chepstow if the boys, TC and Ross, so wish to. But before we get into this weekend's action, we of course will always touch on what winners we had last weekend. Ross's next best Tamara's came in, and TC had Inspiral, never in doubt. And I think that she proved her quality over a good-looking bunch of fillies. I was a bit nervous about the time of year with her, and was she always at her best at the latter stage of the season? But she very much showed herself to be still in great vein of form, and it's great to know that she will stay in training next season. And someone else that's going to stay in training, so to speak, next season is the jockey Frankie Dettori. Although he says that he's just going to stay in America race riding, but if Inspiral is going to keep running over in the UK, he won't be riding. He will not be riding her in anywhere but unless she comes to America, because this is news that I suppose is the worst kept secret in racing at this stage, is that he is going to keep on race riding, but only in America, which I don't think is going to take too much time to go through. I think we're probably a little bit exhausted at this stage of will he, won't he. It was never really in doubt, but I suppose TC, knowing America and knowing how well he rode earlier in the year, it's not that much surprise. It just feels to me a bit of a shame that he just didn't admit it or just confirm it while he was out there earlier in the year.
Yeah, well, he's a phenomenal rider. I'm sure he'll go on to win plenty of races in California, which incidentally has become the virtual retirement home for the jockey colony. I mean, you've got Mike Smith, John Velasquez, Kent Desormeaux, Victor Espinoza, Jersey Joe, and now Frankie, who are all 50 plus. So, yeah, it is a virtual retirement home over there now. I'm sure Frankie will dictate matters, but look, we've seen every single Saturday, oh, this is the last time Frankie's going to be riding here. Frankie's going to be riding here, especially between 1:30 p.m. and 4 p.m. rough times on a Saturday afternoon. Look, he was charging $15,000 to turn up at meetings, which was absolutely ridiculous. It's just been a massive ego trip for the man. But look, he's going to win plenty of races, and if he wants to ride, he wants to ride.
Yeah, I think that's my big hunch, is that so much money has been spent on this farewell tour. So many tracks have put so much to celebrate him, and it's a bit superfluous, isn't it? It's not really anything other than, as you say, him just being able to celebrate himself with no reason at all, because he's going to be riding and we're all going to be seeing him riding. We're not going to be missing it. We can turn on the TV and watch him, but when it becomes each track is celebrating it, it just I don't know, that's just wound me up a little bit. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on it, Ross, at all, or whether it's come as a massive surprise to you, or you can move on.
I echo what both of you say. I mean, they say don't believe your own hype, don't they? And unfortunately he does. It's, as TC said, a sort of a year built entirely on ego. I think it's taken up far too many column inches as it is. And actually, it's you two I feel sorry for, because he can jot off to America and he won't come into my periphery very often unless he turns up at Royal Ascot, which I'm sure he will. I'm already dreading the return of Frankie and all that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, you guys have to cover it more than me. Yeah, I think the whole thing's been disingenuous from start to finish. And the sooner we get to the end of the flat season, not for the end of flat racing, but just to the end of this saga, and move on and give some other talented, young, hard-working, genuine characters a bit more spotlight, the better for my liking.
Yeah, really well said. I think that's totally right. I just think it's been handled about poorly. I think ever since he split up with Pete Burrell, who did a very, very good job handling his media, but now he sort of is handling his own media for some sort of reason. And I thought the tweet in the video was just a little bit disingenuous as well. But look, we'll move on. And I actually do think another big piece of news is far more impactful for our sport, especially national hunt racing, as we turn our tide from one season to the other. The Aintree has announced that there'll be made major changes to the Grand National for next year onwards, and I suppose it's off the back of a very difficult Grand Grand National meeting, a difficult race to watch. Also, we had the antis running riot and trying to make it even worse, but it wasn't a great view. And I think it's good that they've taken the time to look at making changes, but quite a surprise, I think, that we've got a reduction from 40 to 34 runners. The races move forward earlier in the day. It's normally around about 5 p.m. start time. I think it's probably for TV purposes, but they're moving it forward for safer ground. The rolling start has changed to a standing start, and the first fence moves 60 yards forward. There's been a lot of differing opinions, and Ross, you know your national hunt better than ever. You know you've seen it as much as we have probably over the years, how it's changed and it's evolved. Do you think that these are positive changes for our sport, or this is the start for probably more changes to come and more weakening of the Great Grand National?
I think it's wholly positive. I absolutely understand that there will be a lot of people that say that this is the BHA paying lip service to the protesting and the social climate we're in. But frankly, I think, a field reduction of 15%, which is essentially what it is, bringing the first fence closer to the start, a standing start, is all going to mean that they're not going to be able to go quite as quick down to the first fence, and there will just be a little bit more room. And room is so important for these horses to see what they're doing, and the jockeys to see where they want to position themselves. I think it's a great thing. It might not suit some horses. I saw a couple of tweets that said, "Oh no, it means that the UK are going to have less runners in the race." So what? I don't care. It'll still be a good race, and if they're Irish or they're UK, I mean, I don't see racing as a sort of a team sport, who's British, who's Irish. It needs to be a good race. It needs to be a clean race. It needs to be a fair race, and it needs to be as safe a race as it possibly can be. And I think anyone that's a racing fan understands that you cannot remove all of the risk, and you can't remove all the risk of anything in society, but you've got to do the best. I think it was an ugly start to the race last year. I don't think anyone can justifiably argue that. They've made moves to make it safer. That's a good thing. Now, why they're doing it, to me, doesn't really matter. I do despair at the leadership sometimes from the BHA, but I think these are, for whatever reason, whether it's to pacify people or whether it's because they genuinely believe it's going to make it safer, I believe it will make it safer. I think that's a good move, and I'm all for it.
Okay, well, good news, positive thoughts from Ross after the announcement of Aintree of the changes to the Grand National. As you've said, there are concerns, I suppose, and maybe they're a bit far reach that this is the start of the abolition of jump racing. I like to hope that if anything, it encourages people to view racing in a sport that knows how to move forward in a way that listens to the negative and the positive comments that do come all over the world when they see racing in a way that doesn't look right. And if it doesn't look right, it probably isn't right. So we do have to make changes, but that doesn't mean that it means it's the end of racing. It's to benefit in the National Hunt Games. So we'll probably get more into that the nuances as we head into the jump season properly. But for now, we're going to focus on some really good racing on the flat at Newmarket this weekend, because it's one of my favourite days, and that's not only just because of obvious reasons to do the Cesarewitch, but I do love the quality of 2-year-olds that we have on offer, but also the absolute lottery that is the Ces. It's just an absolute minefield. They start in one county, they end in another. You get horses that are well in, you get some Irish trying to chance their arm in a big field like this. And this year we've got Rachel Blackmore coming over to ride in it. So there's so much to look forward to in terms of the Cesarewitch. But it is the Dewhurst that will start just before that, which is, I think, going to be one of the most eagerly anticipated races for the 2-year-olds this season. The Jean-Luc Lagardère was a very, very strong race, but it did not have City of Troy. And we've been waiting patiently to see this horse return to the track. It's now been 91 days. He was due to run at the Irish Champions Festival, but was a late withdrawal on account of the ground. Now, I can confirm, sitting in Newmarket, as I have been for the last few days, it's been very dry. But this morning it tipped down for about 4 hours solidly. But having said that, I'm at the sales. I'm a little bit further away from the track, and they do have their own microclimates here in Newmarket. So it doesn't seem like they've had a huge amount. but there is a lot expected to fall over the next couple of days. We're recording on Thursday as always. So we'll see, will he or won't he run? City of Troy is obviously by Justify, a very good moving sort as well. So they wouldn't want it on the softish side. Having said that, it was good soft when he won the Superlative, but we will see, and we'll see if he's of note to TC and to Ross. We've got the likes of Iberian, Alin Abbey, Array, Indian Run, Ebn Shabab, Henry Adams and Hartem, who complete the field. And TC, we're both big fans of City of Troy. Both have him on anti-post slips for next season's classics. We really hope he'll run, don't we? Do you think there's a world where they might just back out again?
Of course there is. We never know. Aidan O'Brien tends to let his horses run when they're ready to run. And if City of Troy is ready to run and the ground does get a little bit softer, which I think it probably will, but not too soft, then he should be able to take his chance. Look, I absolutely love this horse. I think he's the best 2-year-old in the UK, Ireland, or US combined. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. RPR of 118 in the Superlative, by far the best in the last 10 years. Only had 2 starts, and with these 2-year-olds, you can really hype them up and pretend they're better than they are. But I think this guy's the real deal. You have to trust that he's ready to go after 3-month layoff. But this is Aidan O'Brien, as I say. He knows when the horse is ready. I'm sure if he turns up here, he's going to win the race. But he's a short price. He's 8 to 15. Do I want to punt him at 8 to 15? Probably not. But I do want to watch him win, and I want to watch him win very nicely because, as you say, we have those anti-post tickets for next year. If I was to have a bet in the race, which again I'm not going to, but there is the dead 8 runners. Each way standpoint would be to back Indian Run for Eve Johnson Horton. He's probably just a little bit overpriced given the connections. Eve, as good as she is with her young horses and with all horses in general, actually, isn't Aidan O'Brien. So her horses tend to be overpriced when she runs them in Group 1s. But as I say, City of Troy is the only horse I'm really interested in this race.
Okay, well, Indian Run is around about, is a big enough price. Around the 20 to 1 mark, I think, 25 to 1 even. And yeah, he's got a Group 3 winner. I just think it's the level of form. I don't think Ballymount Boy did much to improve on that form last time out, whereas some of the others, including Iberian, Ross, and I'll get to you next just to see if there's anything that can really throw a big challenge up City of Troy. Iberian beat Rosalian fair and square, although potentially Rosalian wasn't at his best on soft ground at Doncaster. Ali and Abbey looked very good, I thought, when he showed a good attitude to get past horses late on to win last time out at Newmarket, and is proven on this track. Is there anything that you think might throw a bit of a challenge to this freakish looking animal?
I think it's only the ground that can get him beat, Jess. I mean, I was saying just before we started recording it, for me, there's shades of Augusta Redan at Doncaster at the back end of last year. Would they run him? Would they not? And then they said they would run him, and very much felt like they were taking a bit of a chance if he didn't go on the soft ground. And as it was, he was just far too good for them on the day. I think the same could be said here of City of Troy. I think if they run him, you're loath to oppose him. But if they're running him on soft ground, that does perhaps give a few more a chance. I think if it's good to soft, he's just so much better than these. £8 clear officially on ratings. I took the view that this track wouldn't suit Iberian. The form looks great, doesn't it, given what Rosalian came out and did in the Jean-Luc Lagardère. But I think you have to be really careful and say that the ground in the Champagne Stakes just did not suit Rosalian. He really struggled on the soft ground, and conversely, it really suits Iberian. So that can exaggerate the form line between them. But I took the view that Iberian is not the most balanced colt. At Goodwood the time before, he went round that right-handed bend the whole way on the wrong lead, and then pulling up at Doncaster, there's a fairly sharp left-hand bend, and he changed onto his right lead, and again went round the bend on the wrong lead. Now, I could be reading too much into it, but to me, a horse using its correct lead round a bend tends to suggest they're well balanced, and if they don't, can often suggest they're not. Balance on this Rolling Mile track is really important as they come down into the dip and the undulations as well. So for me, from that Doncaster race onwards, I was always going to be against Iberian for all that he might get ground that he likes. And so if I'm looking for a play against City of Troy, and I probably will sit the race out, but if I was, it would be Array. I thought he's quite a big price. I liked what he did in the Mill Reef. Don't think that was a great race, but I loved how he relaxed. I loved how he got down and really attacked in the final furlong and stayed on very well. he'll certainly like this stiffer track and 7 furlongs. Whether he's quite up to this class, I'm not sure. They very much spoke about him being a horse for next year, so whether that big effort in the Mill Reef might just have left a mark is another slight query. But if I was given a free bet, I think it would be him each way. I think he's got plenty more to come yet, and this track and trip and ground will suit him.
Yeah, 16-1 is not a bad price in an 8-runner race for an each way bet. Oisin Murphy rode him to win the Mill Reef, said that they like to hope he'll stretch out to 7 or even be a miling Guineas horse next year. He's bred on quite a sprinting level, isn't he? But it will be interesting. They've got to give it a go. I think Group 1, he's a hardy sort. He can't do much wrong. James Doyle on board, as Oisin is in America to ride Morge this weekend, which we'll touch on, I'm sure. Tom's got some thoughts on that. But Array as an each way play, I'm all in on City of Troy. I don't think it is, but can't be backing him. But again, I agree with Ross that it's a each way race kind of. It's an each way betting race, and Ali and Abi is the one with the track form as eloquently given detail about Iberian's balance and using a right lead and being able to handle a track like Newmarket at such a young age with the lack of experience. Just concerns me about Iberian. I think City of Troy is extremely straightforward. That won't be a problem at all. Ali and Abi at least has gone on and done it at Newmarket at this track. Didn't really go perfectly for him, but I think it might have made a little bit of a man of him to have come where he did. Had to go past horses late, and I actually think he ran a really good race. He finished 4th behind Rosalian at Ascot when he was still really green and such a baby. So lots to look forward to for him, and he's around the 10-1 chance for the Dewhurst. So City of Troy all around, but you can stick in something else if you want to chase him home. Right, we'll head into the 240, which is the Cesarewitch, 2 mile 2 furlongs. And as always, we have a great field size, 34 runners, I think it is. And so that's the max that we've got. And we've got a very healthy lineup over from Ireland, including the current favourite, which is Pied Piper, who we know is a very, very classy jumper. Over hurdles, he's rated 157, so he's £51 higher on his hurdle mark £61 would be the difference between his hurdle and his flat mark, and we normally say that should be around a £40 increase. So with that in mind, he's well in. He's only had the one run on the flat since coming back, since all of his improvement over hurdles. So he's a really interesting one that you imagine has been plotted into it. And Ryan Moore booked. He's normally booked for something of Willie's, but Ryan Moore booked for Gordon Elliott is a pretty good sign in itself. So that's Pied Piper. We've got then best of the UK representation is Grand Providence for Hayley Turner and Andrew Balding, who's got a light featherweight of 8-2. The Shunt is in here. Last year's runner-up, Vino Victrix, Jesse Evans, Not So Sleepy, who was 3rd in the race last year, is here after a good win. Last time he's got a £4 penalty. And we've got plenty more. I'm not going to name all of them. But Tom, going to start with you first. What do you make of the runners that have come, the sort of the overall look of the Cesarewitch this year? Because I think it's a stronger race than last year. We had a bit of a plot job who went and won this last year for Charles Burns. I think that this has got more depth to it, and I found it very difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely got some depth. I mean, I was all over Run for Oscar 12 months ago, I have to say, when he won. But he was 7s and then backed into 4-1 on the off. And if he was 4-1 at this point, 12 months ago, I wouldn't have tipped him, because there's no value in 4-1 on a 34 runner field where anything can happen. Albeit he was extremely well in. Now, I think he was much better treated than Pied Piper is this year. Now, obviously, he is well treated. You've already outlined that based on his jumped mark compared to his flat mark. But at the same time, this is a horse who's 9-2 and will be backed because Ryan Moore's teaming up with Gordon Elliott, because he's a Grade 2 Grade 2 winning hurdler and finished 2nd in the county hurdle. He's backed on his hurdling form and connections, not on his flat form. Look at his flat form. He's 2 from 11 on the flat. He used to be with John Gosden, so it wasn't like he was with some second-tier trainer. He's with the best trainer, maybe Charlie Appleby aside, in the UK right now, and he could only win 2 races. They all came off lower marks. He's now £6 higher than when he was last successful on the flat, yet he's 9-2. Like, if you're punting, value should always be your number one thing. There is no way there's value with Pied Piper. I think it should be between 7-1 and 10-1. Therefore, 9-2 is a terrible price and you have to take him on. That being said, I'll take a shot at two at bigger prices. The first is a horse that has already proven that he likes the course, proven he likes the distance, and can run well in this race, and that's Vino Victrix. As you say, finished second in this event last year. He didn't get a very good run through either. Just as he was trying to make a move with Run for Oscar, he got tightened up between runners, which definitely cost him a length or two. But he would never have won the race, but he still ran admirably and was clear-cut second that day. Quite clearly been aimed at this event ever since. He's able to race off £2 lower, and I thought last time out he was definitely using that as a prep for this. So Vino Victrix goes in. For me, the only negative for him is potentially if the ground does get testing, because I think he wants it pretty quick out there. The other horse is a horse who I think would like the testing ground, which is Wordsworth. Now, he's 25-1, 20-1 in places. I think that's a really good price because he was a high-class performer for Aidan O'Brien on the flat, especially as a 3-year-old, where he was placed in the Irish Derby and in the Grand Prix de Paris as well. Quite considerably a Group 1 horse at that stage. Now, he did completely go off the boil last year. Then he moved trainers. That didn't work out. Now he's with David Pipe. Based on his profile and his recent form figures, you probably couldn't have him. But I loved how David Pipe seemed to get him rejuvenated last time out over hurdles. I know it's a completely different kettle of fish running in a maiden hurdle or novice hurdle, whatever it was, compared to the Cesarewitch. But it seemed like he was enjoying his racing again. And for a horse with that kind of back class and ability, I think you've got to take note in a race of this nature, especially when Christian Houth is taking off £5. So I'll have Wordsworth as well as Vino Victrix.
Just a quick one on the draw. He's drawn 34 or 34. Is that a negative? Obviously, so much happens. It's a long race, so sometimes I sort of forget the draw in these sort of long marathon races, but that's very wide.
It is wide. I think you could take it two ways. One, it's wide and he might get caught wide on the bend, therefore lose ground out there, have to cover more distance, etc. But you could also take it as there's space. So there's going to be an option for the rider to go forward if he wants to pull back if he doesn't. If you're in like 15 or 16, yeah, great, you're not too far from the rail and getting a good posse. But at the same time, what happens in the first 3 or 4 strides can dictate the whole race for you. You could be squeezed out and therefore you're right at the back. Now you're in plan B or C territory rather than plan A. Being out in 34, he's got the option to go forward if he wants, drop in if he wants.
Okay, right. That's Wordsworth, who is a very interesting type of horse. As you say, has been rejuvenated, got quite a big weight, but he's the kind of price that you want in a race of this nature. I think I can find him here at 25-1. So that's what Wordsworth, and a little interest in Vino Victrix as well, for TC, who ran a very solid race in this last year and looks to be and in as good a form. Right, Ross, how do you go about even handicapping this race, or for want of a better, more English using term, how do you dig out your form and start and stop? Are you looking for improvers? Grand Providence has got an almighty profile for a filly who's not done a huge amount, a 3-year-old. Do you look at stats? How do you work out where you fall in a race like this?
Well, I get the blindfold out, spin 3 times, throw the darts at the dartboard and see where they land. No, I took the view that I wanted to be against the 3-year-old. I don't know the stats, but just for me, watching the last few editions of the series, it's a tough, grueling race. It just doesn't look to me like a race for the 3-year-olds, for all that they get lumps of weight. I liked Wordsworth. I thought he was really good over hurdles. I didn't know whether he'd take to it, and I thought looks like he enjoyed it, and Jack Tudor gave him a nice ride, and he won by a wide margin, which was going to do him a lot of good. But I just worry that from 34, if he gets in behind a few, whether he might start to sulk again. I think he liked bossing it over hurdles last time. I thought Tritonic was interesting, really interesting, but I've just taken the view that the rain is going to come and take this ground just a bit too soft for him. But I thought he looked fairly nicely handicapped on his best form. So the two I did come down with on the ground, and I just will add, I completely agree with TC about Piper. There's no value there whatsoever. And for all that Gordon Elliott's having the winners, he's had a few absolutely bomb out. I don't think he would say that his yard is in full health. When you then add in the fact the horse has got to travel, that would put me off, to be honest, at that sort of price as well. One that I did think was nicely handicapped, again, using your £40 sort of calculation from flat to hurdle and chase, was the Shunter. Now, we don't need to say about Emmett Mullins and what a wizard he is at sort of plotting these things up and coming from left field. But the shunts off a marker 94. He's 138 over hurdles. He's 148 over fences. I thought he shaped really well at Gowran last time. Wasn't given a hard time over 1 mile and 4 on good ground where it paid to be ridden handy. The winner made all. He was dropped in. They quickened away from him a little bit, but he stayed on quite nicely without being absolutely given the hardest of times. I thought that was a nice sighter for this. He'll like soft ground. He's pretty adaptable on that. And I think he'll like a big field as well. I think he's getting a bit cute as he's getting older. I could see James Doyle, who I've always thought is a rider for getting his head around a horse. I could see him sort of weaving in and out and moving him through traffic a little bit, keeping him interested. I just thought this type of track, this big field, might just suit him. And this time last year, or the November handicap last year, he ran a really big race over 2 miles, having completely botched the start, stayed on well on soft ground, off just a £1 lower mark. So I thought at a double figure price, he was worth an interest. And then an even bigger price, and it's a little bit more fanciful, is Golden Shot for Mark Prescott. I think this horse is really ground dependent, and I would, as a result, put a line through his run at Nottingham last time, where he just looked one paced up the home straight, knees going up and down on the spot. The ground was quite quick there, and that was also a second time he'd been turned around quite quickly. Both times that's happened, which is a Mark Prescott MO really. Things haven't worked out. I just wonder if he needs a bit of time between his races. He's had plenty of time since then. He's got a really nice racing weight of 8 stone 8. I think over these sort of marathon trips, weight allowance can be exaggerated. If you've got a low weight, you're carrying that lower weight for longer while someone else is carrying a heavy weight for longer. I think it can be exaggerated. Soft ground will suit him, a golden horn, and I thought he was an interesting one at a big price.
Okay, Golden Shot. I'm just trying to hope that it is good. What kind of price would you be wanting for him out of interest?
150 to 1.
Oh, sadly, I don't think he's as...
25s.
I think people have worked this out as well, I'm afraid, Ross. We've got 25s of Golden Shot, and actually the Shunters at 10s.
Oh.
Shunter, you wouldn't want him getting any shorter than that, would you?
He was bigger than that when I was doing my notes, Jess.
Yeah.
I've got a stat about the Shunter.
Price.
I've got a stat about the Shunter, if that's of interest. Only one horse in the last 50 years over the age of 9 has won the Cesarewitch. The Shunter's obviously 10. That one horse, could you name it off the top of your head? Nicky Henderson trained. Eddie Ahern rode.
Eddie Ahern.
Oh, yeah.
In the last 10 years.
I do know it, but I can't remember the name of it.
It was about 15 years ago. Caracciolo is the horse.
Oh, for Nicky.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, there we go. So it takes a while for a horse of that nature to win a race like this. It's mad the Shunter's 10. It does feel, I mean, in one way you feel like he's been around forever, but another way you feel like he's not ever, we always thought he was going to be this horse that was going to go and win. Well, he has done, hasn't he? But maybe he's just always been a sort of a nearly horse. But this would be a great feather in his cap and a great training achievement by Emmett Mullins. But there's lots of horses like this. I love having Not So Sleepy in here. And if there's going to be one horse over the age of 10 to buck those trend stats, for me it would be him, because he just loves life. And seeing him running around Newbury last time out and holding all his younger horses at bay after 7 months off the track in like a no-nonsense ride by Oisin Murphy, I thought that was brilliant viewing. Great for the sport to see a horse that's been so well nurtured to still do it at this age. So he shouldn't be completely discounted as well. But I myself, I found it, as I said, I found it difficult. I just think Temporize for Sid Hosey, who's an interesting character, isn't he? We saw him light up the Cheltenham Winners' Enclosure last year. He's done so well with the horses he's had, and he shoots from the hip a little bit. He's got quite an unusual training mechanisms, but I think he's got a horse in Temporize that he's really managed to work out. He used to be with the Johnsons. He picked him up from the sales, I think it was for 32,000 guineas. And surprisingly, he did something that the Johnsons couldn't do, stepped him up further than 2 miles, over 2.5 miles at Goodwood last time. He won going away, and he showed that he's really just an out-and-out dour stayer. He's postponed out of the Monsieur mare. I think he's improving. I think the ground is very key for him. He wouldn't mind it soft. He's gone up £7 for that win at Goodwood, which I don't think was a bad race, but he does need to improve his form again. But I just think with this, you need to have a horse that stays. You need a horse that can finish it out, because that last 2 furlongs just can take, they all meet such a flat spot and they can't handle it anymore. But I think that Temporize will still be there or thereabouts, and he'll still be able to. And as we know, he's already won over a trip further than the 2 mile 2 furlongs and on the flat. As both Ross and TC says, just because you're now a 2 mile winning hurdler doesn't mean you necessarily even get 2 mile 2 on the flat. So the stamina is really key to my selection there with Temporize and the Sid Hosey fan club, because he's a good man to watch and to get behind. Well, no Willie Mullins selections. I wonder, out of interest, if there was one TC of Willie Mullins's or Ross, because you'd be a fool to overlook them, although he hasn't had a winner in this race for 2 years, but he did go on that 3-year roll, and he's always got something lined up, and he's got quite a few in here. Is there anything, either Ross or TC, that you would like of his?
Yeah,
Not for me. I'll go on, Ross.
No, go on, you go, TC.
Yeah, not for me, because I still haven't got over the fact that Burning Victory lost a buzz. So I'm anti-Willie Mullins in this race now, I have to say.
Fair enough.
I just thought Zenon was perhaps just interesting enough, but you'd be going too much on the Willie Mullins magic factor, and I don't like when tipsters and sort of pundits put up a horse just because it's trained by X, Y, or Z. I think it sort of is too flightful. So I thought Zenon was interesting, but got to stick to the form. And TC, we should say, has got a really good record in this race. So if you're listening, listen carefully.
Yeah, it certainly does, bar that Burning Victory tip, which is an absolute shocker. Right, I'm looking forward to the Cesarewitch as always. We've got brilliant racing, not just on the flat. Ross, we've got racing over jumps. Really good racing. It's Chepstow, but I've seen where your selections are, and I'm starting to think that we've converted you. Are you forgotten about that? It's return of Chepstow this weekend.
And I'm going to be all about the all-weather scene this winter, Jess. Wolverhampton and Southwell. I can't wait for it. No, I'm really keen. I absolutely cannot wait for this Chepstow card. It's as good as I can remember. And there's also been a bit of rain around, and ground has looked pretty safe recently. But I just think at this time of year, it's worth sitting and watching with a notepad and paper, and you'll get loads of clues. And equally, if you back something and get burnt fingers, it can put you off later in the year when actually it was just that it needed the run, or something in the race was just slightly more forward. So loads of clues on offer, lots of good novice chases, and the veterans race, I mean, just looks absolutely brilliant this weekend. So yeah, really excited, but I'm going to sit on my hands, and I'm stuck to the flat for the Nap and Next Best.
Right. Well, with that in mind, without further ado, take away.
So the Nap comes in the 125 at Newmarket, and it's the Godolphin trained Ancient Wisdom, who I think hindsight shows his form to be really quite decent. He won at Haydock first time up and absolutely won pulling a cart. Second and third are no mug, because they're both rated 87 and 88. Then went to Newmarket on the July course and gave £6 and an easy beating to Never So Brave, who then went next time out and ran Van Dijk to 3/4 of a length, albeit that was on Van Dijk's debut. That form looks really good, because he beat him hollow at Newmarket. And then the third place in the listed race at Newbury, the ground was too lively. He raced a little bit awkwardly on the outside of the field, and he was beaten by Rosalian. Well, 7 furlongs good ground is absolutely Rosalian's bag. I don't think that was a bad run at all. He's a big, rangy horse. He's clearly been given a bit of time since Newbury to come to hand. This slightly softer ground, this extra furlong is going to suit him. His dam won on soft and heavy in France. I think he's a really nice horse, and a lot has been said about Godolphin having a poor year and a weak crop of juveniles, and I think that's undoubtedly true compared to last year. But I think this is a nice horse, and it wouldn't be surprise to me if he took a really big step forward now at this time of year, going into his 3-year-old year. So the nap is Ancient Wisdom in the 125, and then just having a slight angle on the national hunt. The next best comes in the 4:10 at York, and it's the Fergal O'Brien train, Punctuation. You referenced the sort of £40 to try and calculate where their flat mark should be against their jumps mark, or vice versa. Well, he's rated 82 on the flat. He's got a hurdle rating of 137. So even my maths can work out that's 55. So that's £15 to play with. Holly Doyle jocked up. She's brilliant, but I think she's especially good in these long distance races. And he was competitive off 88 and 89 for the Balding team. He didn't win off that mark, but he was hitting the frame. And the simple fact of the matter is, he just looks a much better horse since he's gone to Fergal O'Brien. Like, he's just stepped forward every run. It could be that he stepped forward every run because he enjoys jumping far more than just galloping around a field. But I'm prepared to take the chance that he is just a better horse. A mark of 82 underestimates him if that's the case. So he's the next best in the 4:10 at York.
Okay, Ancient Wisdom and Punctuation, and good case for Ancient Wisdom. I think maybe TC, you were expecting Ross to do what he normally does and what he's very good at. So it's quite punchy that he's not only selected a nap on the flat this weekend, but he's also gone and broken into your house and stolen all your notes.
Absolutely stolen it. I can't believe it.
It's an outrage. I just saw a changed man, Ross. We used to know you. We used to know you about this big, wild naps and big field handicap hurdles at Foss and you've changed. Now it's a group race.
Luring you to a false sense of security.
You'll be back eventually. We'll re-find him. But TC, I know that you're keen on Ancient Wisdom as well. What do you like about him, and what's your next best?
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this before, but Ancient Wisdom in the 125 at Newmarket is my nap of the day. I will be saying certain things that Ross has already said, but the form last time was very strong. Obviously, Rosalian's gone on to win a Group 1. The runner-up has subsequently filled the same berth at Group 2 level. It was a good performance in defeat. Prior to that, the two efforts were very good. This horse cost 2 million guineas or pounds, I can't remember which one, but they obviously expect a great deal out of him. I think he's got a wicked turn of foot. He's bred to handle middle distances, so this trip will definitely suit. And what is key, which Ross didn't mention, which I'm glad I can whack this stat in, because this is my most exciting stat of the week, is that Godolphin targets this Group 3 Autumn Stakes. They've won it 6 times in the last 7 years. The only exception is Persian King, who won it for Andre Fabre. Actually, I thought he was Godolphin until I checked the colours, and it was 2 shades of blue, not Godolphin's 1 shade. Now, 3 of the 6 winners that Godolphin have had in this race in the last 7 years went on to win a Group 1. 2 others finished 2nd and 4th at the top level. They generally run their top class animals here. I love that they're targeting this horse, Ancient Wisdom, at the Autumn Stakes. So he is my nap. The next best is basically based on the incoming weather. I think they're due around 25 millimetres at Newmarket in the next 48 hours. So it really could get testing underfoot, and that will suit fast response in the 5 o'clock. How many times do you reckon Ryan Moore has ridden for Carl Burke in his career? Well, I'll just spoil it and give you the answer. The answer is 8. He's only ridden 8 times for this trainer in his career, which I think is notable. He takes the ride on Saturday. Fast response is extremely ground dependent. She needs it wet underfoot. She's got great form for this level. She's been running at listed level throughout until last time, where she ran in the Air Gold Cup and finished a very good 6th. Ryan Moore is a big step up on Brandon Wilkie. No offence to the claiming rider. He is very good for his £7 claim, but Ryan Moore is the best. So I like this jockey booking. I really like her in this spot as well. Fast response in the 5 o'clock at Newmarket. And what I will say is she'll be very well punted if the rain does come. So get on early.
Okay, interesting that. I thought he'd ridden more for him. I know that Carl Burke likes to use him, but he's pretty much impossible, isn't he, to get. But Ryan Moore will be taking up a good amount of rides at Newmarket this weekend, but more or less always for his boss. But and very much got a lot of confidence now behind this Ancient Wisdom, as you say. The likes of Gaiath and Caribus have won that race, and they would have probably have hoped, being a son of Dubawi, important son of Dubawi, and being the price he was, which was €2 million euros at sales. You nearly got there. We're going to be one of the three. That he'd be able to get back to winning ways. Obviously, the form has worked out with Rosalian, and maybe it might give a bit of a boost for Alianabi backers as well for the Dewhurst. So that is Nap's next best. Mine, I don't know if this is a bit of a wild choice. It probably is, but I'm going to take the role as Ross for the first time, and we'll see how I get on. But we're going to Chepstow, and with what in mind with what Ross has said, that some of these horses will be watching briefs. A lot of these horses haven't run for a long time. They're coming back from their summer breaks, and I just was having a look at the 3:10 at Chepstow. It's a novice chase. It's a listed race, 2 mile, 3.5 furlongs. There's 5 runners. 4 out of the 5 are all coming off the back of a summer break. And I think it's 3 out of the 5 have never run over fences in public before. But having said that, Nappers Hill has got a rating of 153. He's a very talented Grade 2 hurdler. He won at Sandown on the closing meeting when he was last seen. He's obviously in the right hands with Paul Nicholls to take to chasing, you'd imagine. But just if he doesn't, and that's the same with a couple of the others, and knowing that Unexpected Party couldn't manage to get his head in front at all over as a novice chaser last year. I just think Bella Bliss for John McConnell, who, yes, has got an official rating of 120. She's got no weight. She's got 10-12 because of being a mare in the field. But she comes off the back of a really decent run of form this summer. She's been kept very busy. Yes, in lesser races. Yes, one of them was a bit of a walkover in the end in a 2-runner race at Kelso. She just got the last fence wrong last time out at Clonmel, but we know she can do it. She's in here race fit. And yes, it's a bit of a wild nap, but Sean Bowen's on board. He's basically the champion jockey already this season. And I just thought, give it a go. Bit of a swing at that. So that's Bella Bliss.
Nappers Hill isn't over big either, is he? Like, you wouldn't put your house on the fact he's going to take to fencing. And I'm pretty certain that last year they were planning on going chasing. At the back end of the season before last, said they were going chasing, and then they didn't. They stuck to hurdles. I'm sure I've got that in my head.
It does, yeah. It wouldn't really surprise me. I think they've done everything they can do over hurdles at this stage. They know he's not ever going to be a Grade 1 horse. They're not going to be running him in and against Constitution Hill. So you've got to go chasing, don't you?
Yeah.
So that means you approve.
Yeah, I approve. I approve of the logic of taking him on. Yeah.
Okay, I'm taking him on, and I'm going a bit mad. The next one probably should be my nap, but it's my next best because it's quite a difficult race, really. This is Spirit Dancer in the 350 at Newmarket, the Darley Stakes, 1 mile, 1 furlong. I just think the horses at the top of the market are very happy to take them on. Knight has been a little bit seconditis. He's just not really had his season this year. He's had it on, maybe the ground needs to be a bit quicker for him, but he actually won on very testing ground last year, but he just hasn't got his head in front. Highland Avenue's been massively disappointing. He's just not really rediscovered his form from his early years. Real Gain's interesting for Richard Hughes and Finley Marsh. He's on an upward trajectory. He's £10 or so higher than when he bolted up at Newmarket back in September. But then you've got Spirit Dancer, who's done absolutely nothing wrong this season. He's been running. He ran extremely well in handicaps. He then won a small field handicap at York back in July, and then backed that up at Windsor. And then he stepped into Group 3 company back at the York Ebor Festival and the Strensel Stakes, and won easily, beating El Drama and Flight Plan. It was a good race. Yes, Nostrum wasn't right, but I don't think there was any fluke about it. And I think that he's a horse that possibly might just be best suited at the likes of York. He's going to have to just show that he can do it at Newmarket. That is my only concern. But I think he's slightly overlooked in the betting at around 7-1. So that is my next best for this weekend. So we have come to the end. We've gone through quite a lot this episode. Plenty to get our teeth into. Let's hope we found some winners. We know that Ancient Wisdom is a very much on the radar of TC and Ross. We've got lots of differing opinions for the Cesarewitch. But we've got an offer for you as well with all these different selections in mind. You can place 2 £5 racing multiples and you will get a £5 free bet. That's available to all customers on both Friday and Saturday this week, because we've got great racing to end out the week as well. It is 18 plus and T's and C's do apply. And then for new SBK users, you get £30 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. That's all for us this week. Make sure to like, subscribe. You can find us on any podcast channel, and we're on YouTube as well. And we will be back with you again next week for maybe some jump selections from Ross.